please remember to switch off your cell phones? Thanks so much.
Mr. Chaskalson.
Thank you, Chair. This morning's witness is Brigadier Mkabela from the SAPS Ballistics Section.
Thank you. Officer Mkabela, will you swear or will you affirm?
Good morning, Commissioner. I will take an oath, Commissioner.
Thank you. Good morning to you too. Thanks. Do you swear that the evidence you're going to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brigadier. Before we begin, I just want to check that you have the same files as me in front of you. So do you have a file that says Brigadier Mkabela's statement?
That's correct, Commissioner.
And there should be a separate file, or possibly a separate file, that says Brigadier Mkabela annexures.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you, Brigadier. Then can I ask you to go to the last page of, or the second last page, page 28 of the statement file, which contains your statement, just to confirm that the signature at the foot of the page on page 28 is your signature.
Commissioners, I confirm that that is my signature.
And can you confirm that the contents of the statement are correct?
Commissioners, I confirm that the contents of the statement are correct.
Then, Brigadier, can we go back to the beginning of the statement, and can you tell the Commission where you are stationed?
I am stationed at Forensic Science Laboratory.
And what position do you hold there?
I hold the rank of a brigadier, and I am the head of ballistics section, which is under Forensic Science Laboratory. And I'm stationed in Silverton here in Pretoria.
Thank you, Brigadier. And in paragraphs 3 and 4 of your statement, you talk about your history in the SAPS. Can you just take the Commission through that history and your experience in the SAPS?
Commissioners, I joined the South African Police Services on the 12th of January, 1994, and undertook my basic training at the SAPS Basic Training College at Hammanskraal by then. And after my training as a qualified constable, I went further to enroll with the University of South Africa, where I studied full-time at the then SAP Academy, which was situated in Graafrenet. From there, I was stationed to different stations in Mpumalanga. I was stationed at Orisstad, SAPS. I then moved to Witbank, SAPS in Mpumalanga, until I found myself at the Forensic Science Laboratory, where I trained as a qualified ballistic expert for more than 3 years. Later on, I was promoted and appointed to be the provincial head of Forensic Science Laboratory in KZN, a lab which is situated in Amanzimtoti. Around 2010, I was then again transferred to head a ballistic section in Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape. Around 2014, I was brought back in Pretoria to head the IB section here in Silverton. And last year, 2024, January the 1st, I was then promoted to the rank of a brigadier and head of ballistics nationally. And that is the position that I hold to date.
Thank you, Brigadier. Can you explain to the Commission the structure of the ballistics services, both within the broader forensic services division and how it is structured on a national and provincial basis?
Commissioners, ballistics section falls and is a section under the forensic science laboratory component, which is under the detective and forensic services. We have 4 regional laboratories. The first one is here in Pretoria, which is considered to be the head office. That's where we develop policies, SOPs, procedures, and we ensure that there is standardization in all the regions. Then we have KZN Ballistics, which is situated at Amazimtoti. We have ballistics in the Eastern Cape, situated in Port Elizabeth. Then we have ballistics in the Western Cape. And besides that, ballistics has got 3 subsections. That is ballistics analysis, which deals with firearms-related cases. We then have what we call IBIS. It's an acronym which refers to Automated Ballistics Identification System, which falls under ballistics. And we have a further subsection which is called Mechanical and Metallurgical Engineering section.
Thanks, Brigadier. We'll get into the ballistics and ABIS subsections in some detail later in your statement. Can you tell the Commission briefly what mechanical engineering and metallurgical subsection does within the ballistics section?
Commissioners, the mechanical subsection is a section which is only, we only have one office here in Pretoria and Western Cape. They are responsible for accidents, reconstructions, filament reconstructions, filament examinations, failure analysis, where there's alleged that a vehicle was involved in an accident, and the other driver alleges that there was fault in within the vehicle. They do those kind of examination. They reconstruct the scene. They determine the speed at which the vehicle was traveling during the accident. So they are an engineering subsection of the ballistics commissioners.
But if I understand you correctly, they don't deal with firearm and ballistics issues. They deal with other engineering issues that may be relevant in
commissioners,
criminal cases.
they don't.
Brigadier, in paragraphs 8 to 10, you give certain statistics about the spread of analysts and the quantity of case files and the backlog. I don't want to address them now because the significance of these figures will become much more apparent once we've addressed the detail of your statement and once the commissioners and people watching understand the implications of these figures more from how the ABIS system works, how the FSL system works. So we'll come back to them later. And let's for now move to paragraph 11 on page 4, where you discuss the ballistics analysis process. And can you take the Commission through what you say in paragraphs 11 and 12?
Commissioners, basically here, I outlined the process of ballistics in a layman's term. Ballistics section conducts forensic analysis of firearms, ammunitions, and related evidence for criminal investigations. The unit's objective is to analyze and preserve evidence that can identify a specific firearm used in a crime, including linking evidence of analyzed firearms to other crime scenes. The theory is that when a bullet is discharged from a firearm, they leave unique striations, marks on both the bullet and the cartridge case, which could link a particular firearm to a specific crime scene. These striations marks are created by the passage of the bullet through the barrel of the firearm. Impression marks are created by impact with the firing pin, the breech face mark, and the ejector marks on the cartridge case. Both the striation and impression marks are unique to that firearm, just like fingerprints. Ballistic analysts then link a firearm to a crime through the examination of these ballistics marks through a comparison microscope.
Your first sentence when dealing with paragraph 12 says that the theory is that when bullets are discharged from firearms, they leave unique striation marks. Is it a theory or is it reality?
Commissioner, is a reality.
Okay.
Thanks.
And so to sort of develop the analogy that you just used, each gun, as it were, leaves its fingerprints on the bullets that it fires and the cartridge cases that are fired in the process. And then your section compares the fingerprints that the gun will leave on the fingerprints of the exhibits that you have found on crime scenes. Would that be a correct development of the analogy?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So if you had 5 firearms and you have this cartridge, would you be able to tell from examining that cartridge that it was fired from a specific firearm out of the 5?
Most definitely, Commissioners, I will be able to tell.
And that's what the exercise essentially entails.
That is correct, Commissioners.
Of course, there may also be another situation where it's not fired from any of the 5 firearms.
You will be able to, yes. Yes.
But if you know if you're told it's fired from one of these 5, you will always be able to identify which one of the 5 it is.
Most definitely, Commissioners.
In paragraph 13, you talk about the range of different examinations that the ballistics analysts perform. Can you take the Commission through those?
Commissioners, we've got different categories of examination that we perform. Without going into the specifics, I'll say, firstly, we do firearm identification. That is, a firearm has a caliber, the manufacturer, the make. We determine those. We determine the functionality of the weapon to see if it's in working condition or whether it's defective. Because in some instances, you will find a person says charged with attempted murder or murder. You'll have to determine first if that firearm was defective or was working. We also analyze ammunitions to determine if the ammunition is in working conditions, where in circumstances where a person is charged for possession of unlawful ammunition, for example. For the purpose of sentencing, the court will want to know is this a real ammunition, and is it working in a sense of the Firearms Control Act compliance. And we also restore obliterated serial numbers on firearms. You find criminals that are using firearms, they don't want the firearms to be identifiable, so they file off the serial numbers. So we also try to retrieve the serial number so that we can establish the ownership of that particular firearm. We also reconstruct crime scenes in an instance where we want to know the trajectory. Where was the shooter when the incident happened? That is, we do that on outside in the crime scene. We go out to attend the crime scene to be able to determine that. And we also analyze tool marks in cases of house robberies where a tool is used to force open to gain entry. When the tool is recovered, it is brought to the lab for us to determine if it's the correct tool or the right tool which was used to open. Or in some cases, in copper theft cases, we also determine the tool that was used to cut the copper, if the suspect is arrested with the tool and the copper as exhibit commissioners.
Thank you, Brigadier. If I can just take you back to 13.1, where you speak of firearm identification and comparison of fired bullets and cartridge casings to determine if they were fired from the same weapon. Is that the process that we just described in relation to comparing the fingerprint of the gun with the fingerprint left on the cartridges or casings found on the crime scene?
That is correct, Commissioners.
And then maybe if we can illustrate these processes with reference to one of the reports that we have attached as an annexure to your statement. Can I ask you to go to the annexures bundle, and on page 20 of the annexures bundle, there is an affidavit by, is it warrant officer? Yeah, it is warrant officer Makgotle.
I've got it, Commissioners.
Now, this report is referred to in your statement in a different context, but we can use it to illustrate the points that you've just made. So, when you speak of firearm identification at paragraph 13.1 of your main statement, can I ask you to go to page 25 of the annexure bundle and look at paragraphs 10.1 and 10.3. We'll leave 10.2 out for a moment because we're going to come back to it in due course. And in 10.1, a warrant officer Makgotle concludes that the bullets mentioned in 3.3 were fired from the firearm mentioned in 4.1. Is that the sort of process that you're describing in relation to firearm identification in 13.1?
That is correct, Commissioner. What the analyst will do, the analyst will take the firearm in question and go and shoot tests in a tank with water so that he retrieved a prestige bullet which is still not damaged, and the cartridge case as sample. Those will be his reference sample. Then he will take that bullet which he has shot. He will compare that bullet with the bullet which is retrieved from either during autopsy or the crime scene. Through the comparison microscope, he will put them side by side to see if he can see similar marks. And that is basically the process. If the test that he shot himself was indeed fired in the same firearm which was received from the crime scene, he will see those marks, and through those marks he will make a positive finding like he has done under paragraph 10.1, Commissioners.
Thank you, Brigadier. Let's go back to, just keep a finger in both files as they are. 13.2, you were speaking about weapons functionality and defects. Can I ask you to go to page 24, paragraph 7.1 of the ballistics report that in the annexures file? And am I correct that what we see there in 7.1 is the conclusion of the process, the conclusion in that case of the analytic process you describe in 13.2?
That is correct, Commissioners. Here as well, before the analyst can embark on testing the firearm in the shooting tank, the analyst will go through by analyzing the firearm, stripping it to check if it has got all its parts, is safe first to be tested, and if there is any defects, then only then he can conclude that the firearm functions normally without any obvious defects.
Then going back to 13.3, you speak of the identification of the caliber and type of ammunition, you say used in a crime. Can I ask you to go to page 23 of the report and look at paragraph 6, read with paragraphs 4.12 and 4.13, and is that the sort of, is that a conclusion from the process that you are describing in 13.3?
That is correct, Commissioners. What the analyst will do here, say for example, he received 5 cartridges that he must determine if they are they are originals. The analyst will take a sample and he will open one from the samples to check if it has got all the components of a cartridge case. That he will check if there's a propellant, there is a primer, there's a cartridge, there's a bullet, those 4 components which made a complete cartridge. The analyst will check if those exhibit that he has received comply with that. They do have those 4 components. If he's happy, then he knows that these cartridges are indeed live ammunition. Then he will then depose an affidavit to that effect.
Thank you, Brigadier. And the last example, if you can go to page 25, paragraph 11 of the report, and read with paragraph 13.4 of the statement, which deals with restoration of obliterated serial numbers. And can you comment on paragraph 11 of the report in that context?
Commissioners, as I've indicated, that in some instances, you find firearms where the serial numbers has been filed off. We have a technique that we used. It's called restorations of obliterated alphanumeric figures on metals. The techniques uses chemicals that are applied on the surface where the serial number has been erased. So the analyst, before he testifies the firearms, will take the firearm to the laboratory, apply the chemicals in order to try to retrieve the serial numbers which were released, which were filed off on the particular firearm. And upon completion, the procedure of the lab says that another independent analyst will come and verify the results and sign on the worksheet of the member, indicating the results that the analyst has found. It's a measure that management has put into place so that we retain the credibility of the technique.
Brigadier, in paragraph 11 of this report that we're looking at, the analyst records that he was unable to determine the serial number of the pistol in question. I understand, or I understand, it has been reported to me that at a later stage the same process was done by a different analyst in the SAPS ballistic section, and that analyst was able to retrieve the serial number of the pistol in question. Are you able to confirm that?
Commissioners, it only came under my attention during the testimony in this commission that the analyst in the other laboratory was able to retrieve the number. So I was not privy to that information until I hear it during the testimony, Commissioners.
The other laboratory, would that be Manzimtoti?
That is correct, Commissioners.
And are you, outside of the processes of the Commission, are you now aware that in fact the serial number has been recovered?
Based on the testimony, I am now aware that the other analyst was able to retrieve the serial number, Commissioners.
Mr. Chairperson, if I may, Brigadier, what would have happened that this analyst in Silverton was unable to determine the serial number? You have described a process, the serial number reconstruction process, which suggests on its face, on the face of it rather, that you should be able to always to recover the serial number, or to reconstruct the serial number. Now you have an analyst here who says, I was unable. It must suggest something. either your capability is less, it doesn't always deliver, or he simply didn't follow a process that you say you have protocols, there are ways of doing it. He didn't do that.
Before I answer, I just want to make the following remarks, commissioners. There is no guarantee, firstly, that you'll always be able to retrieve the serial number based on various aspects. For example, how deep was the serial number erased? Some criminals use a grinder to erase the serial numbers. But like I said, we have measures in place that we have implemented to safeguard the credibility of the techniques. Like that another analyst must come and sign and confirming or verifying the findings, whether it's negative or positive, whether you have been able to recover the serial number. In this instance, what would happen? For one to know what happened, you need to investigate. The lab has a procedure of handling complaints from customers. If a client comes and say, I'm not happy with the findings, I've got these results, and I took the case to so and so, or I think I'm going to give a typical example. For example, you have a murder that happened, and there are eyewitnesses on the scene. A person is arrested in possession of a firearm. A cartridge case is collected on the scene. They are both brought at the lab. An analyst examines the firearms and he says it's negative. The investigating officer will say, no, I don't understand, because I've got eyewitnesses who saw the suspect shooting the deceased. How can you say it's negative? From where I'm seated, I cannot say you are right or wrong. All what I can say is that I've got a process, I've got a system in process where I must investigate the complaint. Through the investigation, that is when you will establish what actually transpired, because there are logs that the member must complete when they start with the process. They must indicate which process they've used. So for you to investigate, you will need to go through that process. Then you can only, at some point, the problem could be with the system. Maybe the chemicals, for example, are expired, and the members used expired chemicals. Or there could be other factors that could have contributed to him not finding the results. But seated here, I cannot say without proper investigation, when a complaint is received, I cannot say what transpired, unfortunately, commissioners.
So the verification process by a second person, you say whether the results in negative or positive, there is a verification by a second person. The verification process is not automatic, according to your protocols. It's subject to a complaint. If there is a complaint, only then there is a verification. I'm just trying to understand your processes.
Commissioner, the verification is built into the process. So each analyst, upon completion of the etching process, they must have someone to come and verify and sign.
Thank you.
In your second last response, Brigadier, you said that the analyst must indicate which process they used. That to me suggests that there's more than one process. Is that so? Remember, what we are dealing with is establishing what the serial number is, where it has been obliterated. So is there more than one process?
Commissioner, that is correct, depending on the materials. The materials of firearms are not the same. So that's why we have different techniques. Say, for example, a firearm commonly known as Z88, which is issued to police officers. The frame of that firearm is alloy. Alloy is not magnetic. So in that instance, you will have to use chemicals if you want to retrieve the serial number. Where they've got metal, which is magnetic, you'll use a magnetic yoke. That's another technique. So there's, in short, yes, the process, the techniques are not, it's not one technique, commissioners.
Thank you.
Maybe just one last question. The You answer that in terms of protocol, the built-in mechanism, there has to be a second person that does the verification of a positive or negative result. If that is so, then somewhere in the lab, there should be a record, which if things were done properly, there must be a record that shows that there was verification by a second person of this negative result.
Yes, certainly, Commissioners, there will be.
Thank you.
Brigadier, if we move on to paragraph 14, from paragraph 14, you describe first the forensic science laboratory administrative system and then the ABIS system. Can you take the Commission through what you say from paragraph 14 and just explain the difference between what happens in the forensic science lab and what happens in the ABIS system?
Commissioners, in short, the FSL admin system, which we call Forensic Science Laboratory Administration System, is a software that is used to manage or used for the administrations and management of forensic science laboratory cases. It's a system where lab numbers or laboratory numbers, unique laboratory numbers are generated for a specific case. It's a system where you keep records. It keeps the chain of custody. When you hand in an exhibit to someone, you hand it through the system. When you want to find out what happened to this case file or exhibit, you go on the system, it gives you a trail, what happened to that exhibit, to whom is it in possession. So that is the FSL admin system.
And if I can just stop you there and to pick up from Commissioner Baloy's last question, would this FSL admin system be the place where you could go to establish who it was who reviewed and confirmed the conclusion of Warrant Officer Makgotlwe that the serial number could not be retrieved? Would that information be stored on the FSL administration system?
No, Commissioner, that information will be stored in the work notes of the member inside the case file. Okay. Those are the workbench procedures. The forms that the member completes will be kept in his case files.
And is that the same case file in which the ballistic exhibits will also be kept?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Thank you, Brigadier. If you can then move to paragraph 16 and describe the ABIS system.
Commissioners, firstly, as the South African Police Services, we pride ourselves of having acquired this type of a system to assist us to automate the ballistic process. Because of the high level of violent crime that we experience, which involves firearms, it is imperative to have a system that is going to automate the system. And this is the kind of system that we have. We started using this system in 1997 up till to date. What the system does, it captures and compares digital images of bullets and cartridge cases to link firearms used in different crimes. And perhaps if the Commissioner wants me to go through how it works.
Please do.
Yes.
And the Commissioners or I might stop you partway through just to amplify your explanations.
The system scans and takes high-resolution digital images of bullets and cartridge cases, including the unique marks like firing pin impression, firing pin marks, and breech face mark patterns.
Can I just stop you there, because you have physically shown the system to us, and maybe if you can just describe physically how that scanner operates. Maybe if I can take you through step by step. The ABIS analyst will receive a case file with exhibits in it. What's the first thing that ABIS analyst does once he or she has the exhibits in front of the machine?
Commissioners, once the IBIS analysts have the particular docket or case files with the exhibit that needs to be acquired on the system, they will first capture the details of the case. That is the station name, case number, the lab number, the details of the exhibit, the cartridge case, the caliber, the make. They will capture how it is marked. They will first capture the image, the information on the system. And thereafter, they will instruct the system to open what we call a cartridge case holder. Once the system does that, once the information is captured, the specimens or the cartridge case will be inserted into the cartridge case holder and closed. Once closed, the system automatically scans through high definition, scan through the images of that cartridge case, as I've indicated, and store that image in the system. It capture it in high definition, so it magnifies, cannot be seen through naked eye. The system magnifies the marks and capture them on the system, commissioners.
And Brigadier, before we get to the next stages, maybe we can illustrate what you're describing in relation to the images that are scanned by going to the annexure file at page 5, where you have attached the printouts from the exhibits. Well, it starts at page 1. You've attached printouts from the exhibits in the Bramley file. Let's start at page 1. And can you just describe to the commissioners what are these images that we see on the right-hand side of page 1 of the annexure?
Commissioners, this is the back of a cartridge case. In the middle, if you see on the pic, that's where the firing pin hits the primer in order to ignite the propellant for the bullet to be discharged from the firearm. So as that firing pin hit that primer, the primer is soft material. It leaves marks. Around that firing pin in the middle is a breech face. When the breech face is impressed on that soft material, it also leaves marks. So what the system does, it captures those marks. This is a typical example of how those marks were captured by the system.
And if you can, if we see the 4 images below the big image at the top, what is in the red circle on the image in the top left-hand corner?
Here, Commissioner, is just different angles that are taken. The red one indicates the firing pin, and the out one is the breech face. So it's just images, because the system takes different images, different angles according to the light, and this is just the different angles which were captured by the system.
And again, if we go, well, correct me, explain to me, are these 4 images of there are obviously 4 images of the same cartridge case, and are they just taken at different zoom lengths and different angles, or is there any other difference that we need to be aware of?
That is correct, Commissioner. It is one cartridge case taken from different angles.
And different, I may be wrong, but it seems to me that there is a different level of magnification as well in some of these images. Some are zoomed further in than others.
That is correct, Commissioners. I must just add, Commissioners, that during the capturing of the information, the system also keep records of the analyst who captured the image during the creation, and the date and the time of when the images were created on the system, Commissioners.
Maybe if you can take us through page 1 of Annexure MNN1 and just explain what each one of these entries reflects.
The first one, Commissioners, is the case details, as I've explained. The particulars of the station name, the lap numbers, and the date when it was created and by whom. And then the second one
Sorry, Brigadier, let's take them one by one. Case number. If I understand, that would be the unique number normally that your laboratory attaches to each ABIS file.
That is correct, Commissioner. That will be the lab number.
The lab number. We know that in this particular case, it isn't in fact the lab number, it was the FSL number, but we'll come to that later. The next one, site name.
The cartridge case exhibit details.
No,
Before
we're going one by one down the entries under case details.
Then it will give you the site, because I've said we've got 4 regional laboratories. So the system will require you to, for example, if you are in Pretoria, it will state PTA, then the number of the workstations that you acquire. We've got different workstations. So in this instance, the site where the specimens was acquired is in Pretoria, and the workstation that was acquired is BRX2, Brass Tracks 2. And then the original agency, it would be Bramley. Then the case number.
And originating agency, that would refer to the fact that it's the Bramley police station that opened up the original SAPS CAS file.
That is correct, Commissioners. And then it will ask you to state the type of an offense. In this
before you get there, original agency reference, that's the case number that was assigned to this investigation by the Bramley SAPS police station.
That is correct, Commissioners.
And you also have an original agency contact line item, but that wasn't filled in this case. And that would be, I presume, the investigating officer. If it is filled in a case, it's usually the investigating officer at the SAPS police station that holds the CAS file.
That is correct, Commissioner, if the details were available.
What does high profile refer to?
Commissioner, here is just an option on the system, for example, which is an option that sometimes you tick, but it just refers to high profile case if you know. But in most cases, the person who is acquiring wouldn't know if this is a high profile case. For them, all cases are the same.
Thank you, Brigadier.
The answer normally be yes or no. What would you tick there? Where it says high profile, what would you say?
Normally, you'll just make comment. There's a drop box where the analyst will just make a comment, Commissioner.
Yes. Event type?
There's a drop box where you choose murder, homicide, then they just choose whichever is applicable, Commissioners.
And then it says supervisor. And what normally goes under well, in this case, there is no entry on supervisor. Is that a problem?
No. Some of the fields are there, but you may not use all of them, Commissioners, on the system.
Occurrence, is that the date of the alleged crime?
Commissioner, I must just first explain how the system uses the date, the format. You know, we use the format, we start with the day and the month and the year. But the system is designed in such a way that it starts with the month and the day and the year. In other words, this particular entry was created on the 4th, which is April, and the 30th, that is the day and the year. It's sometimes confusing because This is not the format that we are used to when we write date, Commissioners.
It's sort of North American date format.
That is how the system is designed, Commissioners.
Where does the system come from?
Commissioner, the system was designed by Canadians. It comes from Canada, Commissioners.
And then creation, what does that refer to?
Commissioner, that is when the analyst acquired these specimens, or the date. So it means it was acquired on the 9th. Again, that 9 is September. The day is the 6th of September 2024. That is, and the time, 11:01. That is when the analyst acquired the specimens on the IBES system, Commissioners.
And then created by Modise AS, that would be the analyst who first acquired it on the system.
That is correct, Commissioners.
Then there are modification dates. And how would an exhibit of this nature ever be modified?
It's also one of the fields that is on the system. After acquisition, the system synchronizes. Maybe after every 10 specimens that we have acquired, you synchronize. It's just to take your work and push it to the data concentrator where the comparison is going to take place. But those are the fields that are there. Obvious, once she is done with the acquisition, she will press OK, then that will signify the modification.
In this case, there is no modification because the date and time of the
Is the same.
Are the same.
That is correct, Commissioners.
Then under comments, it says 29 hits. Can you explain that?
Commissioner, it's just one field that the analyst feels complete, but at this point, I can't say what that 29 hits is signifying, Commissioner, because here we were just acquiring. We're just in a process of acquiring. So it's a comment on the system as well, which the analyst has an option to complete or not.
But would that, is that a comment that has to be included by the analyst, or is that something that the system will automatically, if the system records hits at a later stage, we know the system does, and then as we take you through your evidence, you'll explain how hits are confirmed. Who would have put in 29 hits? Would the system generate that itself, or would would someone have had to have entered it? And if someone has entered it, would you be able to trace when someone had entered it?
Commissioner, this comment is a comment which would have been completed by the system automatic because when these printouts were made, there were processes that took place on the background of the system. So this would be a comment that comes from the system.
So if we go to the bottom of the page, we have a date. And if it's in the North American bottom left-hand corner, if we have the North American dating system, that's 20 October this year. It's last week. Bottom left-hand corner. Do you see that date?
I see it, Commissioners.
So are you then saying that as of that date, 20 October, the ABIS system would have recorded 29 hits for this, on this specific cartridge?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Can we go further down and look at the line items on cartridge case exhibit details? Before we do that, is it possible through the system to go back in time and to see does the system have functions that will tell us that although on the 20th of October 2025 the system had recorded 29 hits, at say December 2024 the system had recorded no hits, or it had recorded 5 hits? Does the system have that functionality?
As I said, the system keeps logs of everything which is happening. So if you go back, but with hits, the operator will always update if a hit is made. And on the day when they update the system, it will give history of that transaction. So, say for example, if the hits were identified maybe in December 2024 as being 20 possible hits, and they update them, and maybe on January the hits are confirmed, the operator will go to the system and update that those 20 possible hits are now confirmed, and he will tick them. So that track and trace will be there on the system, Commissioners.
And could we get a timeline? I mean, would you be able to generate a timeline from the system of when confirmed hits on these cartridges, and indeed on all cartridges from all 4 of the guns seized in Bramley, when confirmed hits were first recorded and subsequently updated and then updated again? Is that facility on the system?
That is correct, Commissioner. The system keeps a head stamp for any activity that takes place on the system.
So would you be able to give to the Commission then a timeline on the progress of hits on these 4 test cartridges related to these four weapons?
I will be able to do that if provided with time to do that, Commissioners. I will be able to do that.
Thank you very much, Brigadier. That would be very helpful.
And just below the date, 20 October 2025, there's Mthembu TJ. Do you see that?
That's correct. Yes, I see that, Commissioners.
Yes. What role or function would Mthembu TJ have played, if any?
He is one of our technicians who normally does the viewings on the match point. After the product, after the acquisition, there must be someone who does viewings. And he is one who does that final product of viewing to confirm if there are any possible hits, Commissioners.
And in this case, would he have been the person who printed out these images for inclusion in your statement?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Brigadier, if we can then go down to the line items under cartridge case exhibit details.
So, Mr. Chaskalson, maybe before you go to that, let me just ask one last question. Brigadier, the way it says event type, and you have illegal possession/sale, where does that kind of description of the event come from?
Commissioners, the system gives you a drop box with listed offenses, but it's not an exhaustive list. So the analyst will check the front page of the case file, what is the charge, and they will go and choose. If it's murder, they will go, the system will normally they use homicide, they will say homicide, will choose attempted murder. But you have a situation in some instances that, because the list is not exhaustive, some of the charges that are on the docket, you may find that you don't find on the list. And in some instances, in order for the process to proceed, maybe the analyst will just choose the one which is more relevant to that particular case.
If I can possibly clarify in this case, this is the Bramley case file, which relates to the arrest of the parties and the seizure of the weapons in their possession. Murder is not a charge in the Bramley case file. Murder is a charge in the Vereeniging case file. So I suspect that the Bramley case file, the primary charge is illegal possession of weapons, which may explain why the event type is flagged illegal possession.
I concur, Commissioners.
Can we then go down to the line items on cartridge case exhibit details? Exhibit number, can you just describe what that is?
Each exhibit is marked with a unique number, followed by the number which the exhibit is assigned to. We start with the lab number. So this particular cartridge case was marked with the Bramley lab number 193045/2024, capital letter AA10. As it was collected from the crime scene by the crime scene, the person who was processing the crime scene. It could be a member from LCRC, a local criminal record center. As they see the exhibit on the scene, they mark it, they give it a unique number of where they find it. They decide on the numbering. That numbering will be written in the covering letter. That specimen will be packaged, separate with that numbering, AA10. When it arrives at the lab, what the analyst will do will take an engraver and engrave the lab number of that case at the bottom of the cartridge case, followed by that unique number from the crime scene, which is AA10. That is the unique number of this cartridge case, Commissioners.
Caliber, that speaks for itself. That's it's a 9mm parabellum. That's the caliber of the firearm that's from which the cartridge cases are discharged. Make?
Commissioner, at the back of the head stamp, each manufacturer, they write their manufacturer name. Say, for example, if it's PMP, which is Pretoria Metal, they will write at the back of the head stamp PMP. So different manufacturers have got their own different head stamps in order to identify the ammunition. So such information is also recorded on the IB system, Commissioners.
Is that what we see on page 2 of the same annexure?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Then firing pin shape, that seems self-explanatory. Composition.
Commissioners, there's different material to manufacture cartridges. You've got brass, you've got nickel, you've got steel, so you must explain the material. So this is just to explain, this one in particular was made of brass, or is made of brass.
Then double cast composition, which has been left blank, what would sometimes be put there?
It's also related to the material, but in most instances, some of those fields that are additional, it doesn't harm if you don't complete them, if you don't have the information, Commissioners.
Then category, you have crime evidence. Maybe if you can illustrate what goes in there by comparing page 1 with page 2.
Commissioners, the IBC is a database. We acquire piece of evidence from crime scene, that is cartridge cases, bullets that are collected from crime scenes. We acquire them on the system. We also acquire tests that we test in the lab. We acquire them on the system. So when you acquire, the system gives you option to choose. If you are acquiring a cartridge case that comes from the crime scene, you will choose crime scene evidence. If you acquire a test specimen, the system will ask you and you will choose a test. So that is why there's a difference between this field of category.
Then again, if you can explain what the category firearm exhibit refers to, and it may be useful again to compare the blank entry on 1 with the entry on 2.
If the commissioners can check the exhibit number on that page 2, it says 084TC1. So, in short, the marking of, that is the marking of the test that the analyst would have used to shoot test with this particular firearm. The analyst, if the firearm has a serial number, the analyst will take the last 3 digits of the firearm, of the serial number. Say, for example, it's 27084. The analyst will take the 084 and add TC1. T means test cartridge 1. Normally we fire 2 tests. The second test will be 084TC2. And he will engrave this number at the bottom of the cartridge case. So this is how the test was engraved for this particular firearm, commissioners.
So, if I can just take that further, page 2 is a test cartridge. So
That's
it's
correct.
a test cartridge fired from a gun seized at a crime scene.
That is correct, commissioners.
Under firearm exhibit, you have a number for the gun that was seized. It's an exhibit number for the gun.
In other words, the firearm serial number was not erased, commissioners. Yes.
It would ordinarily, would the serial number of the gun be included as firearm exhibit? Under that line item, firearm exhibit, if you have the serial number, would you ordinarily include it there? Because if I look at the other exhibits relating to the other weapons, everything is recorded as gun 1, gun 2, gun 3. There are no serial numbers recorded in relation to the line item firearm exhibit.
You will include the serial number, commissioners.
Now, because it's a test cartridge, you know which gun it was fired from, so you can enter something under firearm exhibit. That's correct?
That's correct, commissioners.
Whereas because the cartridge found on the crime scene was just found on the crime scene, you can't, at this stage, enter any details in relation to firearm exhibit because you don't know which firearm it was fired from, or you have no conclusive proof that it
That
was.
is correct, commissioners.
Occurrence again would be the date 30th of April 2024 when the crime took place. What does the reception line item refer to?
Again, commissioners, some of the fields that are there, which are not compulsory, commissioners.
We've then got creation dates. It says created by Modise AS. And there is a modification a few minutes later. And it says last acquisition also a few minutes later. What do those modification and last acquisition dates refer to?
When the acquisition process starts, it records the time, and when the process finishes, it records the time. Then the analyst must now instruct the system to release the specimens. So all those processes are recorded, commissioners.
What is BF class characteristic?
Again, it's some of the fields that are not compulsory, but are there on the system, commissioners.
And then finally, there are dimensions for the firing pin outline. Sorry, what does BF start for? BF inner outline, BF outer outline.
This is the dimension that the system automatically gives to the diameter of the back of the cartridge case, commissioners. So those fields are automatically filled by the system, commissioners.
And do you know what BF stands for?
Commissioner, out of now, I cannot conclusively say what it does, what does it stand for, Commissioner BF.
Thank you, Brigadier. This it was a long diversion from paragraph 17.1 of your statement. So let's get back to 17.2. We've dealt with image capture and acquisition. Next stage is database storage. Can you just describe what happens there?
Commissioner, once the acquisition of the specimens is completed, the next phase is the database storage. In other words, the digital images and associated data are stored in a central database, and the system can store hundreds and thousands of pieces of evidence.
Then the third stage, automated comparison.
That's where now, once everything has been stored, the system starts to compare now, to look for similarities. The system uses advanced mathematical algorithms to check if there are any similarities. In other words, it runs the specimen which was acquired recently with specimens which were previously acquired on the system. It runs it back and forth to check if there's any similarities. You can refer this as a internet or Google engine search, where when you go on the system, you want to find out a particular make and model of a vehicle, you enter the particulars. This is the process where the system does that now. So it compares now, and similar as the internet engine search, commissioners.
And how long after acquisition would the system take to complete its process of automated comparison?
Commissioner, if the network is stable, this process can take 5 to 24 hours.
But it's a process that the system does.
That's correct, commissioners.
It doesn't, and it's a process that is not, at this stage, 100% accurate. It's putting forward to you, or the system is identifying a range of, shall we say, potential hits.
That is correct, commissioners.
So at some stage, an analyst is now going to have to come back and sit in front of a monitor and call up this case file and go through the potential hits to see which of these potential hits graduate to the status of likely hits or hits that should be confirmed manually by microscopic analysis.
That is correct, Commissioner. That's a process which we called viewings. In other words, that's a process where the operator will come and sit in front of the system and view all the candidates that the system has identified as possible hits. And if he's satisfied that there are similarities indeed, then he will make a printout of those images and then request the physical specimens in a form of case file, which are filed in the case files, for them to be compared manually through a comparison microscope.
So so there are two further stages. You've got the expert who then sits in front of the screen looking at the potential hits and identifying which ones look good to him or her. That would be 17.4.
That is correct, Commissioners.
And then you've got 17.5, which is the experts now sat in front of the screen. The screen is given 40 potential hits. The expert has said, 25 of these look really good. I want to requisition the original exhibits for each of these 25. That's the process that you describe in 17.5.
That is correct, Commissioners.
And then the last stage of the process is the original exhibits then come in, and a different expert sits in front of a microscope with the original test cartridge from the case file in one microscope and the 25 requisitioned exhibits one after another in the other microscope.
That is correct, Commissioners.
Can you explain to the Commissioner how resource constraints delay this process? So you started at 17.3, and you, Ms. Poy has gone ahead of me and is putting up your backlogs and your personnel figures yet, but we'll deal with them even later. But for now, what I want to understand, or I want you to explain to the Commission, is there are several stages in this process. A ballistics examiner has finished the first manual examination and test firing process in the forensic lab, has signed off on a report. That report comes to ABIS. The first stage in ABIS is going to be image capture and that you deal with in 17.1. You need an analyst to be available to do that image capture. How long does it take ordinarily between the moment that the case file arrives at the ABIS section to the point at which an analyst is able to enter those exhibits and acquire them in the ABIS system?
Commissioner, because the case upon completion by a ballistic analyst must go through the administration process where a new IBIS lab number must be generated. And after that, that case must be assigned to an analyst before it could be acquired on the IBIS system. So during that process, due to the number of cases that we received and the limited resources, it may take around 3 months before you are able to acquire that specific case under normal circumstances, because the cases must queue. And as they queue, they go through the process that I've mentioned. Lab numbers are generated. At some point, they are assigned to the operators. The operators acquire them. They must go back to be reviewed in order to be finalized on the system. So it goes through that process. So in any event, it's a process that is dependent on the resources that you have at your disposal, Commissioners.
Now, how many acquisition terminals do you have at your office? Those machines that will take the high-density image photographs of cartridges?
Commissioners, we have 8 brass tracks. The brass tracks are cartridge cases stations. We acquire cartridge case on them. We have 8 of them. And then we have got 3 bullet tracks where we acquire bullets.
Slow down. Let's deal with the brass tracks first. Oh, so maybe I interrupted too soon. So you've got 3 bullet tracks, bullet photographing machines,
Yes.
and 8 cartridge photographing machines.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Do you have a complement of analysts that are able to operate those machines on a full-time basis?
Commissioner, for the longest time, we never had that luxury to have a complement staff to body, what I can call warm bodies to sit in front of those machines. With the current strength now, we are not able to operate all the existing machines.
How many machines are you able to operate with your staff at the moment?
Commissioners, as I've said, we've got 8 brass tracks. At a particular time, you may find out that there's only 4 that are fully occupied.
How much do you have to pay in terms of license fees for the system?
Commissioners, we call that the service level agreement. We pay a monthly fee of over 3.8 million per month for the maintenance